Well, welcome. Thanks everybody for joining. If you are on LinkedIn, this is the link to join our Luma. We will be having a Q&A here in a few minutes, so we can kind of give you a moment to scan that and join on Zoom if you prefer, but the LinkedIn Live is fine as well. But we're really excited today. We have Jordan Finger with us today, who we're going to intro in just a bit. Before we do that, let's introduce the Leo team here. So we have Connor Holland, who is our co-founder and CEO, Josh Garbullo, who is co-founder and CFO, and Brandon Benson, who is co-founder and CTO. And then we also have Avery, who's our founding head of brand and creative, joining us, Spencer Mitten, our founding engineer, and I'm Taylor. We're really excited to have you guys here today. So today, what we're going to have is a presentation from Jordan Finger about how to make your post-click funnel more profitable. And we'll have a Q&A. So as this is happening, feel free to write your questions in the LinkedIn Live chat, or if you're in the Zoom, please put them in the Zoom chat so that we can ask them during the Q&A. You can enter them anytime and we'll go back in the comments and read them. And then we'll relate that back to a Leo product demo once the Q&A is done. And this is really exciting. If you stick with us until the end, we have a free offering on Leo that is 1 month completely free. We encourage you to stick until the end. And we also will have a little section where we'll talk about more webinars that we have in the future with other awesome marketers. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen really quickly and introduce Jordan. So we're really excited to have Jordan with us today. Jordan is a chief growth officer for founder-led D2C brands, and he scaled brands from startup to acquisition, including Freshly, which sold to Nestle, and Nutrafol, which was acquired by Unilever, and he has managed over 900 million in paid media. And he's here today to pull back the curtain on what's actually killing post-click profitability. So with that, Jordan, I will kick it over to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And give me a second to fire up my presentation. All right. Are we good on everyone's end to see my?
Yep, looks great.
That's amazing, Jordan. I don't know how you figured this out, but
Neither do I, but I need to just get it to come up again. All right, cool. So again, welcome. Thanks for having me, Leo Ads, and I really am excited to participate today. This has been something I've really been looking forward to. I've been doing a lot of presentations a lot lately, more on the ad side, which the Leo Ads team is going to cover. So I really wanted to spend our time today getting into what happens after the ad and what happens after the click. We already did some of the intros. I don't have to go into this again, but good afternoon. I'm Jordan Finger. So let's dive in. So when we are looking at advertising, like all of us, we're really usually only looking, or really mostly focused on kind of like what happens in platforms. So let's just kind of speak about meta ads, because that seems to be the dominant ad platform right now, especially for like direct consumer CPG type of brands, where their main focus and goal is to really bring in customers. And I live in these accounts all day long, of course, a whole portfolio of different clients. And it's everyone thinks that the ad is the ultimate solution. Yes, we have to like get our messaging right and our ICP and really make sure that we're speaking and communicating our value props and really addressing the consumer's problem. And that's definitely a huge part of the equation. However, there's usually too much of an indexing I find on these calls where we're dominating all our time on what other ads should we make? Why do we got, let's keep changing our ads. Let's keep throwing more ads into the marketplace, especially with the advent of Meta Andromeda. You'll hear it across all social channels, Reddit, X, make more ads. There's definitely something to be done around velocity and ad creative. But what I want to focus on is what happens after we've got them to click. So most brands are only fixing one of these three things. My belief and what I've seen, like we said, spending lots of money across these channels for many years, is we really need to fix all three for the ads to become profitable. And if we ignore any one of these, then we just won't make money. And the first place it really starts is the landing page. So let's dive into that. So the landing page. So I sit down with a lot of, like we said, founder-led brands. They're very excited about the site they built, the branding they built, the Shopify store, the investment they made, and that's all great, and that's amazing, and that's great for just the overall brand ethos and voice and look and feel. However, when we're running paid ads, specifically performance marketing ads, most folks really don't give a lot of consideration and thought to like what happens after the click. And like, hey, Jordan, I sit down with the CEO. We just made this great page. Like, run all our ads to our homepage, right? Like, I get asked that a lot. And maybe sometimes they'll look a little deeper, like, all right, let's send the ads into our product display page. A little bit better. I'm a little bit happier with that. But really the miss I find is that even a product display page around a given product really may not continue the communication and what we've said to the user that clicked in our ad and pull that messaging forward into our landing page. And if I were to digress for a second into Google, they've kind of been really the masters of this. Like they give you an ad score, but they also give you a landing page relevancy. And in really now across other platforms like Meta ads, this is becoming more and more important. And the last point I want to make on this before I show you some examples is the idea that the ad gets them to click, obviously, but the landing page is really where that experience starts. It's just like I see an ad if I'm in Manhattan walking up Fifth Avenue and I see an ad on the street and I walk into a store, that walking into store experience is that first landing page. Is it well lit? Does someone greet me, etc.? Now, yes, we can't recreate all those real world experiences online, but we could do a lot of things in terms of how we communicate with that user after they click. And the one last point I want to make about this right now is because of these platforms being more and more driven by AI ad serving, we're losing more and more control as marketers, like who that audience, that content is shown to. And even if we nail our message, we don't always truly know who that audience is. But once they come to our site, we have full influence and control on really nurturing that relationship. So the landing page really is, to me, where it all starts. Oh, sorry. So I just wanted, we don't have to go into this too much now. I could always toggle back to this during the Q&A, but I just wanted to show you and talk you through a couple of scenarios. So these are a couple of clients and brands I work with. This happens to be a faux plant company doing premium accessible plants for the home. And once again, they launched the brand, they were sending to their homepage or they sending to their shop all page, and sales were looking really good, right? Like we measure this mostly on a ROAS because it's not necessarily like a subscription-based product. If we're designing a living room or a dining room, a home office, we may not need a lot of these products. So we really just kind of look at the sequence, right? Just to dissect this a little bit. This is an example, right? So they come off the ad. Now they have an offer. They have a warranty. They have a seasonal offer. We show the hero product. Then like what we might show below the fold is, well, what's the value prop? What's the benefit here, right? Like sit it down, walk away, you're done. This is not a plant you have to take care of, you have to nurture. Yes, you could say that some of the stuff probably lives on the website, but this is really communicating that full story. What we've teased them on the ad, we're really communicating them with. And then, as always, just a really strong call to action. Testimonials, the warranty, just really making the process really seamless and easy. Another interesting example, this is a brand that has a very unique garbage system. As you could see on the right photo, it's this disc you put at the bottom of the pail, kind of a unique product and kind of something that people might be like, oh, do I really need that? So I would say that, yeah, this is also something like, it's an interesting product, but really how do you communicate something that doesn't exist in the marketplace? So again, just some real quick examples above the fold. We kind of put in the whole brand demo story on the video at the top of the funnel. We show kind of the before and after, like chaos versus everything being neat and clean. And then again, a strong call to action. And I'll just buzz through this one last example before I move forward. Repeat purchases. So the last one, yes, you buy a garbage bag, you need to buy it again. The repeat purchase in this case is coffee. And again, high level, big call to action. But I'd say what really makes this page kind of unique is we really leaned into this emotional story. This is a Mexican chocolate flavored coffee. If you're not familiar with this, it's very popular type of coffee that's served in Mexico. So we went into this whole abuela story and we really found that emotional connection. Again, things that you probably don't always put on your homepage, things you may not even put on a product page. So really understanding that story arc with that consumer and using this as an opportunity. And then the last point around all this, it's also just like with our ads, it gives us a really rich opportunity to do A/B testing, right? So we could test very offer driven, really lifestyle driven, benefit driven. It gives us a really strong opportunity to kind of test what happens after that click. So these are, jumping forward, these are kind of like all of the traditional metrics that most of us advertisers and marketers look at, especially when we're running ads. We're looking at our click-through rates, but really looking at mid-funnel and bottom funnel activity. So right now, I'll just funnel on the bottom of the funnel activity. We touched upon a little bit on the landing page where it all starts. But what are we looking at? We're looking at our AOV. We're looking at our conversion rate. We're looking at our CAC, our customer acquisition costs. We're looking at our return on ad spend. The plan example, right? Like, again, they may not buy many of these plans, so the ROAS and the AOV, really important. Coffee, CAC might be really important because we're okay if that customer doesn't spend as much because they know if they enjoy the product, they're going to keep buying from us. So these are all the metrics that we're really familiar with. But this is the one I really want to jump into. So these metrics, I find that most marketers, even founders, even CFOs, they don't know these numbers and they don't look at these numbers. And if everyone on this call has had a different experience, love to have that conversation at the end. But these to me is really what decides that profitability, right? Like that's the name of our topic today, how to make our ads more profitable. And I think it really all starts here. We really need to understand these economics. So the first one is our contribution margin. If you're not familiar with contribution margin, that's not just our CAC, that's on that transaction. What money are we left with at the company? So if our CAC is $10 and our cost of goods are $10 and our shipping $15, it's not a $10. It's really we're all in is $25 less let's say we sold it for $30, we're left with $5, right? So that's our contribution margin. And most advertisers or even agencies, right, they're not really held to that number, but I do think as the world evolves and we really truly are becoming more partnership with all the brands on whichever side of the equation we're on, really understanding our contribution margins becomes very, very important. And then the second really important one is payback period. So let's just, again, use that example, but let's just shift the numbers. Let's just say our contribution margin is -$5, right? We've lost $5 on that initial order. So then the question is, how many more times either we could improve those unit economics right there to have a better contribution margin, or if it's a repeat purchase product like a consumable, a beauty product, a beverage, a snack, etc., then we really want to look at our payback period. How many more orders does that user have to do with our brands to pay back that contribution margin to make the profit? And so these are really like the fundamentals, and I would add to that kind of that string of KPIs that we all look at to really understand the economics of this business. And I would say the contribution margin, that does hold tighter to that ad and landing page and funnel experience, right? Like what are we left with after the first order? And then the payback period, again, it could be a high ROAS product on day one and we can make money. Or like I said, at the end, we have a 4 ROAS or 5 ROAS and still not make money. And that's because we don't have the right contribution margins and they potentially may not buy again from us. So that's not a very good business. So these are very, very important metrics that we must look at. And this is just kind of a visual example. I won't spend too much more time on this, but we're going on a fishing trip. The trip costs us a certain amount of money, but we have fuel costs, we have tackle costs, maybe we hire a guide, right? Like that's what's it all in to really catch that fish, right? That's our contribution margin. And then from the cost of that fishing expedition, how many more fish do we have to catch initially, or how many more orders around that fish do we have to get, pay back that contribution margin? That's just a nice little visual example. So then simply to recap here, we all know these first four, and I threw in the CVR here. So like what percentage of our folks come from our ads, go on our landing page and convert? What's our average basket size on that initial order? What's our acquisition cost and what's our return ad spend? So that nothing there is new, But the key metrics that I just added are the CM and the payback, right? What's our contribution margin? What's our payback? So this is really truly the fundamentals of really how to start really making that customer profitable. And then the last one here is the LTV, which I'll talk about in a moment. So in essence, just to recap, actually, we have our landing page. The landing page is where the whole conversion experience happens. We get them to click. How do we continue to communicate with them? And just tying it back to some of those visual examples and just real world examples beyond that, I've found running the same ads with the same messaging to different landing pages, I've seen conversion rates go up 20, 30%. So that means our CACs come down, our ROAS goes up. That doesn't mean still not to do your ad iterations and your ad management. Like that still must happen. But to make those ads even work harder and better for you, we really need to introduce and understand that funnel experience. And then we really have to know our numbers, right? I went into it pretty in depth. What's our contribution margin? What's our payback period? And not just to only focus on our ROAS and our acquisition cost. And then once we get the customer, what is that experience? Like, that's understanding those economics, but really the customer experience is where us as brands start making our money. So again, let's just use that plant example. Are we cross-selling them tabletop plants or flowers or vases or other accessories for the home? Are we pushing up that basket size to upsell them? Or if it's a consumable product like a beverage, how often and what's the velocity they buy again? Do they get a case and they buy every 2 months, or do they get a 6-pack and buy every week? Really to understand that repeat purchase behavior. And on that model where it is a consumable, the real goal is the subscription, right? Can we get a percentage of the folks that really love our product and give them a lot of benefits to subscribe around the product? And that really leads into our lifetime value or our customer, CLTV, our customer lifetime value. And one metrics which I didn't talk about on here, which is really just as important, is understanding what is that lifetime value, and then really what is that lifetime value, really probably divided by our contribution margin, but at least our LTV over our CAC. Like what's that ratio, right? The bigger our ratio of what it costs to bring that customer in and how much revenue they generate, that's where it all starts. But then we have to look at that payback period, because if that LTV to CAC, let's say, takes 12 months or 18 months. Well, that's a very expensive business to keep funding and capitalizing to get to that profitability. But if your payback period, let's say, is day one or 90 days, well, that's a very attractive business, because then the business itself, through its own cash flow of coming in, can finance its own growth, right? It gives you that allowable to acquire more customers for your business and actually outmuscle the competitors. So the brands that are winning, they're really looking at all these components. And again, I know the Leo team's going to talk a little bit more about ads, and I just want to talk about a little bit of the post ads. So that's what I have to share today. And I'll turn it back over to Taylor and the Leo team to go into some of the demos they wanted to talk about on their platform. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jordan. That was awesome.
Thank you.
So to kick off the Q&A, first question is 900 million or 800 million in paid media.
Yeah.
So based on all of the accounts that you've seen, that you've audited, at what point do you think you have to just start from scratch versus how often can you see an account that might have some kind of a broken structure in the user journey direct to their landing page that's fixable? Does that make sense? And the reason I ask is because a lot of our audience, they are just starting with their ad
Okay.
spend
Fair enough.
and have new accounts. So how can you tell like when you need to just move into a completely different direction versus when you're kind of gaining momentum?
Fair enough. So let's start from the perspective of something earlier at a younger stage of the brand, and we could expand upon there. So it really comes down to a process and how are you going to implement and test around that process. So let's talk about ads specifically. So if we're in meta ads, yes, the first exercise is who are we even talking to? Who is our customer? And we can't be like, oh, we're a beverage company. Everyone drinks beverages. Well, that's not good enough. Or it's like, oh, I have a fitness product, so it's this demographic. Those are pieces of the equation, but we really need to define our ICP, right? Who is our intended customer profile or ideal customer persona, right? Like that's where it all starts. And that's regardless if you're a big brand or starting brand. So a lot of people, a lot of folks go in, they're like, oh, I'm just going to make some good looking ads and see what happens. But before you do that, we first have to nail our ICP. And your ICP for the product, you could have 5 different ICPs. One example that just pops to mind that I've referenced, I've done some work in the telehealth space around the GLP-1s, which are really popular now. And I've seen it where you might have, a woman 30 to 40 years old. She's a busy mom. She's working. Her husband's working, right? Like her use case is very different. And maybe it's an older couple, right? Husband, wife, they're retired. The kids are out of the house. They finally saved up to retire, but life just got in the way. And they're looking to maybe use something to help supplement getting healthier, like a GLP-1. So the product helps both audiences and both personas, but how we speak to each is very different. So that's the first part. Then the second part is like, how do we structure those experiments? And that's very important. So sure, when you're starting out, you have an idea, yeah, put that up as your idea, but you kind of have to be intentional. We have to group what is that ad messaging speaking to, who is it speaking to, and group that ad group. So I would say even on a limited budget, I would at least start the process. And I'm thinking again in meta ads is, if we're going to get really technical, I would group ad groups by an ad theme and maybe test 1 or 2. Like never just have one. Even if your budget's limited, at least have 2 theses that you want to experiment with and always kind of run an A/B test. At least then you're getting clean data. You're able to analyze not only within it, like you might have 5 ads within an ad group and understand what happens there, but how does this ad group compete against the ad group? And is there any emerging themes in messaging that are working better than others?
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because if you're using so just to follow up there, do you ever use the A/B test experimentation tools within Meta itself, or do you run your own?
Me personally, I've done it both ways. I tend not to use their tools. Not that there's anything improper. Again, I'm just going to jump it only because the accounts I'm managing tend to be a bit bigger and they need kind of a bit more data and influence. And also the tools have gotten better, right? Like the tools weren't really that great in years past, and maybe I just have certain habits. I'm not saying better or worse. So I tend not to use the tools, but I'm not saying everyone should not use the tools. If you're unfamiliar or you're first learning, then I do suggest you should use the tools, but make sure you're using them properly. So let's just say whatever your budget amount is, I would always maybe keep 20% of that budget to do your A/B experimenting. Whether again, it's like, hey, ad group A versus ad group B, not a true A/B test because it's potentially targeting different audiences, or go and use Meta's tool or a third-party tool to kind of split test that properly.
Okay, awesome. So next question is regarding the landing pages. So
Yes.
tell us about your process for designing landing page messaging. How do you iterate on it? And how can you figure out what the highest converter is as soon as possible?
Yeah, so I touched upon it a little bit in our presentation, but just to expand upon what I just said around the ideal customer persona or profile, the ICP, it's the same thought. Well, let's just say I'm just thinking plants only because I spoke with them earlier, so it's still in my head. So let's just say it's about premium faux plants. Like all of our ad messaging is around premium, better alternative to, let's say, Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware. Let's say that's our theme, or it's like us versus them, like us versus Restoration Hardware, right? Like we don't want to just send them to a general landing page. We might want that landing page to specifically carry that communication, that theme into it. And it's us versus Restoration Hardware or us versus Pottery Barn, right? Like that's where a homepage or a PDP leads off. But the macro theme there is continuing that messaging into that first page. Structurally, there's lots of different versions, a listicle, 5 reasons why, founder story, us versus them. Like there's a zillion iterations that we can get into, but the key is really sequencing that messaging and theme and pulling it as far as you can, as deep into the funnel, right? So if you click on an ad for, let's say, a Pottery Barn, right? Like, you might want that landing page to specifically carry that communication, that theme into it. And it's us versus Restoration Hardware or us versus Pottery Barn, right? Like that's where a homepage or a PDP leads off. But the macro theme there is continuing that messaging into that first page. Structurally, there's lots of different versions, but the key is really sequencing that messaging and theme and pulling it as far as you can, as deep into the funnel, right? So if someone's if you click on an ad for red and you come to something about blue, well, you've lost them, right? So, I mean, I know that's super basic and generic, but that's the essence of it. So that's, to me, is what's most important. And once you kind of nail that, it's like, again, we had this ad that was really interesting. It got really good click engagement. Like, all right, that's emerging as like a really strong story that audience out there likes. But now let's make sure we don't lose them, right? So then we kind of look at the landing page engagement. And does that landing page, let's just say the next point of the funnel is add to cart, like what percentage of folks start adding to cart, right? Like we're not looking at the full funnel just yet. We're just saying, does this page, is the ad messaging strong? If the landing page messaging strong, then our add to cart rate should be really, really strong. Right now, if we take that and they get bottom of funnel and we get a high drop off rate, well, maybe that's, price, or there's a zillion other things that we would dissect. So we would start looking at those metrics. And then to your last question is like, how do we find the winners faster? Well, just like we do with ads, like we could always have our hero landing page, but we should always have some A/B tests always running in the marketplace. And again, it does come down to your budget because you still need a certain, anything has to be statistically significant on data. If you're in the business, you're getting one order every 3 days, you're not going to learn a lot. If you're able to, you're getting 5 orders, 10 orders a day, it's still small in terms of absolute numbers, but it's enough data to start getting a read, right? So you really want to start looking at those fundamentals. And just like the idea that we group together our ad ICPs, well, those ad ICPs are tied to a landing page ICP. Then we start merging and seeing like this audience seems to not only click better, but they pull landing page to add to cart and they convert better. So to me, that becomes our hero ICP. That becomes our control group. And then we test and experiment against that. Can we beat that? And if we can't beat it, how do we improve that? Can we make that ICP experience even richer and better?
Got it. Are you a fan of putting multiple signals in your conversion tracking when looking into that stuff, or do you typically try to lean towards just a few metrics like add to cart, purchase? Like, do you use a lot of view content and things like that?
So when I'm working a lot with very performance-oriented brands, I look at more of the traditional funnel, right? The click-through rates, the landing page rates, the add to carts, initiate checkout, and purchase. Those are typically the ones I look at. View content is kind of like an interesting one, but I find view content is more interesting that's good for like a retargeting audience, right? Like those are folks that maybe came, they engaged with a brand, they got a little interest, but they didn't start the journey, right? So if we don't capture email, that to me becomes a very fertile audience for some sort of retargeting. But there's nothing that I'm aware of and feel, would love to hear from your perspective when we cover it. But if there are other metrics we should be looking at, yeah, I'd love to hear back from the group or your team as to like what else we potentially look at.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about this payback period.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what are the methodologies and levers that you can pull to make that payback period shorter?
Yeah, so that's kind of very contingent upon what product and service we're offering. Sometimes the payback period doesn't have to be a higher frequency. The payback period could just be that we got a better contribution margin. So we don't necessarily need them to buy so long. Or let's say it is a product. It could just be that they take a 1 month supply of something, but on the first reorder, we upsell them on a 3 month supply, right? So instead of getting month, we're getting 1 month into 3 months. So in essence, basket number two that maybe happens 30 days after the initial purchase is 3 times bigger than purchase one. So that's how we could look at that's fundamentals. So it really depends on the product and service. And what we don't want to do, because we're all consumers as well, we don't want to be force-fed something just because a brand tells us to buy more, right? Like we all have a natural cycle. But there are definitely within our cycles, there's things that we should look at in terms of data signals as to like, all right, did we give them enough opportunity to sell? Did we communicate with them frequently enough or often enough, right? Like we really have to look at that. And that also then starts talking a lot to not only just the ad funnel, but then that starts getting into more of the retention aspect and a lot around email, right? Like email, I know it's an old platform, but it's still first party data. And we still have a lot of influence and control and segmentation and messaging and frequency and SMS along with that. So email becomes really, really powerful to kind of increase that payback period, or sometimes you're actually not even trying to create more payback period velocity. And what do I mean by that? So let's just say, like in the Freshly days, someone signs up for 6 meals today on Thursday, but they don't get their product, let's say next Wednesday, and they have 6 meals. If you do it as a weekly subscription, they might get the box on Wednesday, eat 1 or 2 meals, and then they're getting a notification. We're going to bill and ship your next box. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I've not even tried this product yet. I don't want to get the product again next week. So creating the right cadence for the consumer, whether they can self-select it or we ourselves kind of optionality on sign up. You want it weekly or bi-weekly? Like actually that I would say is pushing the payback period out a bit, but you're going to have higher retention, right? Because folks are not going to be like, you know what, I'd rather just cancel on that subscription model. So that's why you have to kind of look at all of those different moments, all those different cohorts, all those different retentions and cancellation periods, and try to identify the reasons why, and are we giving them the best experience? So the best experience may not ideally be what the business wants now, but every business wants customers that they pay a lot of money to acquire to stick around to make them profitable.
Got it. Okay, so we have time for one more question, and that is, let's say you just got access to a brand new ad account for a new company. What is a step-by-step process for you to get the quickest outcome of a sophisticated funnel model like you've been sharing with us?
So is this an account that's already running or it's never run any ads before?
The company exists, but brand new ad account. They haven't been running ads before.
Fair enough. So I think it's all the pieces we just talked about. It's what is the value prop? What are we communicating about why our product is better or different than the options out there? Is there truly a pain point that we're solving for the consumer? Once we kind of identify that, then we build our ad messaging communication around that. Maybe it's segmented by a few ISPs like we talked about, and then matching up the landing page. So like that, those pieces is still the fundamentals. Like that doesn't change whether you're just starting out or you're spending $1 million a month in ads. The fundamentals are still there and they're still needed. And I would make the argument that today more than ever, marketing 101 is more important. And that I think gives an advantage to younger brands because there used to be a time years back where you could kind of like day trade within a Meta account and kind of like hack it. Right now, those days are gone, right? Like you can't really touch a lot. It's a lot of AI driven, but what we still have control over is the ad messaging and what we serve into those platforms. So we really got to start with all those fundamentals. And then it comes down to budget, right? Like if we're not being realistic on like what our allowable CAC is, what is our true contribution margin, what do we expect the payback period, like even if we have to come up with certain assumptions, we should come up with those because that's that's what planning and budgeting is. And then we put it into the marketplace and we get real world data and match against that. Maybe we're surprised, maybe we're not, right? Like so all those kind of fundamentals hold true to really identify and kind of build out that sophisticated model. It sounds sophisticated, but it's really just simple proper planning and putting the right pieces. Like if we're building a house, we're not just going to take some wood and start hammering it together. We're going to have a blueprint. We're going to have an engineer review, right? We're going to have some design. There's definitely there's kind of pre-set up aspects that we want to have before we start building that house. So whether it's a tiny house or a big house, right? Like this, the fundamentals still stay there. So everything I kind of covered is how you build this sophisticated funnel to make it work for you.
Excellent. Okay, thanks so much for that. If you have additional questions on LinkedIn, please just send them in the chat and we can bring them up in a bit here if we still have time. But for the next portion, we're going to hand it over to Connor, who's going to do a brief product demo.
Great. Great. Thanks so much, Jordan. That was awesome. And it's going to inform this quick demo. So, hello everyone, I'm Connor, as Taylor introduced. So I'm just gonna share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So, quick overview of the Leo product. What you have here is 3 tabs, and I'll pull this over just so that it's quite obvious. But on the left, you have all of these different ad campaigns that you may have been working on. Visible are Meta, Google, LinkedIn, TikTok, Reddit, and Bing. So when you come in to manage your ads and audit your marketing and see how things are going, it's all ready here on the left, and you can expand them and see how things are going across each platform, and visualize them in the center panel. So that's all of this. You have reporting. So as a marketer or maybe an operator at your company, you need to bring together lots of information and consolidate that into a polished report, either to be reviewed internally or shared with stakeholders. So that can be done here and visualized again in the center, which is our pattern. If you want to share that, you can download it as a PDF or a doc. And then we also have assets. So you can manage all of your assets within Leo too, whether it's assets you generate with Leo, statics or videos, competitor assets that you've been spying on and want to use as the basis for making new ads, or polished ads that you want to run consistently across these different platforms, and then raw assets you're working with. So that's all here in the assets folder. And then there's work, which Leo is doing in the background for you to improve your marketing outcomes. Okay, so that's a quick overview of this. In the center, I said you have everything you visualized, and on the right is the chat. So this is where you would work with Leo to achieve different objectives you have as a company. And so after listening to Jordan's amazing webinar and kind of hearing him talk about how to improve the performance of your marketing post-click, I thought it would be good to give a demonstration of how Leo could actually assist in this process of auditing your landing pages, figuring out where there might be holes in your funnel down there, and seeing how it could help improve that. And so one of the valuable parts of Leo is that it's plugged into all of your paid media channels. So it knows the kinds of messaging that you've tested, closer to the top of the funnel, and can use that to inform what you're doing maybe more at the bottom of the funnel with these landing pages. So a prompt that I thought of was this, and let me just share it actually in the Zoom chat real quick. So if anyone's following along here, they're welcome to do that. Let me see if I can expand this. Okay, I'm just going to send that along here. Okay, great. So I sent the prompt that I'm using, and the idea here is just to have Leo go and audit my landing page and tell me where there are possible leaks in the conversion, and if there are headlines or offers that don't really map to this one path to purchase that Jordan was talking about. Are we keeping the ads that are we keeping the promises that our ads have made? And so Leo has all of this information about the kinds of messaging we're using in our ads, so can see if that's mapping correctly. And then I'm asking Leo to give me like a prioritized list of fixes I can make, and then rank those as they're expected to lift my conversion rate. So this is something Leo can do. It can look through all of my paid media and perform this audit for me. And while we're waiting here for Leo to kind of think through this, one other thing I didn't touch on as much is these objectives. So a very important part of Leo is being able to work with him synchronously. So you're working with Leo, talking to it about your marketing performance, but you can also do this asynchronously. So Leo will be in the background working on a specific objective you have, auditing your accounts, looking into messaging, see where things might be falling through the cracks, and coming up with optimizations for you. Okay, so these are some of the different criteria that Jordan had set out for us. So it's looking at how streamlined our headline is. It has several problems with it, so we're kind of exposing ourselves here for you guys, but we're all about transparency at Leo. So here you go. So there are issues with it that it's saying perhaps they're generic. There's the CTA with the demo, and it's saying there isn't a demo there for the user to see. And when it comes down to the offer, it's saying there are actually multiple offers and it's ambiguous. I think this is actually a really good point for us as a team, is like coming to a very direct offer. So when they get to the landing page, it's immediately apparent and kind of follows the intent they had from clicking on the ad. So that's actually a really interesting one. And then, yeah, one path to purchase, making it very clear. And Leo has some data on our CTA and conversion rate, so it's kind of informing this. Yeah, that's really good actually. So I'm getting kind of lost in this, but yeah, so Leo comes to this and it has some ideas about the different priorities of fixes. and a dedicated paid landing page with a single CTA that maps directly to that messaging, a headline rewrite, mobile page speed, which is interesting. It probably got that from our Google Analytics integration we have. So do we have that connected? Yeah. So anyways, lots of interesting things you can do here with Leo because it has all of this information tied together in one central intelligence. It can be really helpful at auditing every part of your funnel and specifically this kind of post-click moment that we've been talking so much about here. So we'll keep that prompt included in our LinkedIn Live too. So if anyone wants to come back and test this out with Leo using some of Jordan's methodologies he's introduced here, we welcome you to do that. And yeah, super excited to have you test out these awesome principles he's taught us today. So thanks again, Jordan.
Thanks, Connor.
Great. Thanks, Connor. So with that, I will share just about a few of our upcoming events that we have. There we go. Great. So something that we love to do here at Leo as well is we love to have webinars with awesome marketers and share the learnings with those of us who are in the Leo collective, we call it, or a community of marketers that we have. What we have right now essentially are two things. So we have an event calendar and a Slack channel. So the event calendar you can find by scanning this QR code. It will show you the upcoming events that we have on our Luma page and give you information on how to join, information on the speaker. If you subscribe to the calendar, you also will be informed about all of our future events. So we would encourage you to do that. The collective that I was talking about before is a Slack community where we talk about marketing tactics, but also specifically Leo usage as well. So it's a place where you can come in and share how you've been using the product. Or if you're not using the product, you're welcome to just talk about marketing strategies that you're learning about and want to share, or questions as well, because a lot of these marketing experts who we've done webinars with are in the community. So it's a great opportunity to come in and get access to free information. You're also more than welcome to follow us on LinkedIn, where we always will be sharing information about events and new product updates as well. We like to update the product quite a lot. So if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the product, you can find information there. So lastly, we talked about a free offering for those of you who stuck until the end of the webinar. So if you are still watching on Zoom or on LinkedIn, we can throw the free month code in the chat right now. So I'll have Connor or Avery, if you guys can, just put the code in there for people to copy and use. The way that you use it is once you join, and I don't know, actually, what I'll do is share this again so that we can walk through how to apply the code. So let's share this one more time. Great. So essentially what you'll do is you come down here to the bottom left once you've created your account, and then you will go to settings and billing, and this is where you can manage your subscription. So all you do is you click manage, it'll take you to Stripe, and then you enter in the promo code and subscribe. So that will be one free month. We also would love to have you in our Slack community as well if you are using the product, so that we can answer any questions. Because one thing that we have there too is a space to answer questions about product usage, and also if you see something that you would like to implement into Leo that is not currently offered in Leo, we also love feature requests. So you can come in, request something that you think would help with your workflow, and we would love to build it for you. So with that is everything that we have. So thanks again, Jordan, so much for your time and for being here. And thanks to everybody who joined us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
See ya.